Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartiya, and welcome to another episode of TFR Let's Talk. Today we have with us Simon Taylor, Vice President of Global Channel Sales at Azul. Simon, it's great to have you on the show.
Great, yeah, great to be here. Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, and today we are going to talk about some channel movement that is happening there. But before we go there, I would love for you to quickly remind our viewers what is Azul all about.
Candidly, Azul has been around, I guess, for 23, 24 years now. We were founded on the West Coast of America and California. Company's gone through various different stages, but we're best known now for being the best alternative Java OpenJDK solution to Oracle. So today, if somebody's using a Java runtime, which for all of you, I guess maybe some of you know Java, some of you don't, but Java's been around for 30 plus years now. I, in fact, used to be a Java developer myself back in the day. But it powers pretty much 35 to 40% of all the global applications. And, Java is one of those sort of languages, it's interpretive, so it runs inside a Java virtual machine. Virtual machine is a sort of piece of code that's open source, that's managed and provided by a community. Oracle obviously are the biggest licensor of Java. They have an OpenJDK solution, and we provide an alternative that's considerably cheaper usually, and in many cases provides much broader support. So that's what we're best known for, Swapnil. I think outside of that, we do actually have some other solutions and capabilities for everything from high performance Java in the cloud. So when people want to move to cloud compute solutions, modernize their applications, move them into an environment where they can maybe introduce microservices, things like that. They're also putting them inside of Kubernetes containers. They're trying to optimize the compute utilization in something like AWS or GCP, for example, or Azure. And as a result, they need a better solution to do that. We actually have a high performance Java environment that produces significantly high performant applications and reduced footprint. So that's just two of the areas. There are other things that we do, but those are the things that we're best known for.
Can you also talk about the significance of Java in the modern world, where we talk about Kubernetes and cloud and all those shiny objects? So, before we talk about partner, and importance of channel, I would like to also emphasize the importance and role of Java in the modern world.
Okay, so let's just talk about first of all Java in general, and then we'll talk about how that relates to Azul, because we have many customers. In fact, we have about 36% of the Fortune 100 that use Azul. Many people may have not have heard of us, but just let's put it in the context. So because Java has been around for a long time, it's been used in a variety of different desktops, server infrastructure type of applications, and predominantly in applications that require a lot of compute, transaction processing. For instance, trading floors, obviously financial services, anything to do with banking, supply chain, manufacturing, telcos, obviously for things like interconnect billing. Java's been the mainstay of those type of applications. And the reason why is because it was built for high performance when it was first invented. And you look in time now, there's different languages around. There's things like, Python, there's things like C++. They're really great for apps, things that sit on your iPhone, things that sit in more smaller controlled environments. And Python's used extensively maybe in security, things that are more embedded. But there isn't really a good alternative still for Java. So Java's been really, it's still used predominantly by all the large organizations today, globally across all industries. And really, the versioning and the performance that's improvement over the years continues to be what people look for around Java. For example, right from Java 6 and 7, which is probably 20 years old, through to where we are Java 23 and beyond. There's different versions of Java, there's different applications being used, and the majority of what it's being used for is to power big, large business applications. So hopefully that gives you a bit of context. It's also not the type of thing that's going away anytime soon, as I mentioned, because obviously there isn't a great alternative out there, having been a programmer myself.
Excellent. Thank you for not only talking about Java, its kind of usage today, and also the role that Azul is playing in this space. Now let's talk about the importance of channel, not only for Azul, but for the whole Java, open Java ecosystem.
Right. Okay. Well, this is multifaceted actually, but if we break this down into Java as a whole is an open source community technology, so you'll find a lot of DevOps, development operations, integrators, consultancies, obviously have built their whole businesses around supplying Java resources, managing Java projects, modernizing Java applications, upgrading people's Java infrastructure, things like that. But what's become more important in the last few years is how Oracle is monetizing Java has had a direct effect on the channel and how it's responding to that opportunity space. So if you roll the clock back, probably around Java 17 to 19, Java used to be free. Then Oracle decided to monetize it, and it used partners. It used a resale community to go to market and really introduce a pricing framework. And then over probably a shorter period of time, Oracle decided to take that business direct and not use channel anymore, at which point a lot of all the global value-added resellers had built practices around reselling Java, providing advisory services, consulting services, things like that. So when Oracle took that direct, that didn't mean that these partners then just moved away and didn't actually then do anything with Java anymore. They just continued with software asset management, IT asset management advisories, just really because of the relationships they had with those customers. Now, you roll the clock forward to the last 2 years ago. Oracle's been slowly monetizing Java and changing different pricing, but in January 23, there was a big change on pricing, and Oracle decided to go with an employee model, moving away from infrastructure, that's desktops, users and servers. Now, what that meant was that most organizations that typically were either paying Oracle already, were using Oracle and getting away with it and never really paid for it, because of course it used to be free, or had no idea about the dependencies, all became very worried because there's this huge licensing tsunami that's coming towards them from Oracle because of their employee-based auditing model. So now they could just basically come along and say, here's a bill, and you need to pay it. So what that meant from a channel point of view is their volume of advisory engagements with customers just exploded. So all of a sudden the customers are coming along saying, how do I deal with this situation? How do I respond? How do I manage it? What's my license exposure? And as a result, what we did at Azul, and I've been part of this, obviously growing this for 2 years now, is we rapidly onboarded and responded to that need, amongst other things that were going on in channel, to really mobilize and help those partners understand how to manage those interactions with those customers, and also look at the alternatives that are available, because people do not need to just license with Oracle and pay a huge bill. And there's it's typically 80% cheaper. So it's been a great a market to get into, and that's been driving a massive amount of channel momentum. So for Azul now, what that means is that over 50% of all of our opportunities that we have as an organization come from channel. And it was very different a couple of years ago. And also from a revenue point of view, we've crossed some milestones as well on our road to be as channel-centric as possible.
And when you're looking for channel partners, what criteria you have? What do you look for in a channel partner?
That's a very, very good question. So we do have a variety of different partners. So obviously the typical large value-added resellers that have practices around software asset management, IT asset management, they're definitely organizations that we focus on. In fact, in a period of about 6 to 9 months last year, we onboarded 35 or more of these global partners in a very short period of time, because that was the demand. So that's one type of partner. And of course, now we've grown in different regions, and we're using distribution more heavily. So that's two-tier distribution through VARs, just to provide more scale into markets or areas where we just don't necessarily have an office or a localized presence. Outside of that, there really are 2 or 3 other types of partner we're very focused on. So we don't do services at Azul. So when somebody, for instance, wants to move from, say, Oracle to Azul, which is a very simple process, we've written a book on it. It's called JDK for Dummies, right? Open JDK for Dummies. But it's a process. It's a project that needs to be managed. Partners deliver those services. So we have a fair amount of integrators that are involved in that delivery process. And they obviously get skilled up to provide those delivery services and really become a mainstay of both us bringing them into opportunities, but also supporting themselves, self-service. Outside of that, there are 2 other types of partners heavily right now. There's very much partners that are aligned to cloud, AWS MAP program migration, and also the APM programs. We're also on the marketplaces as well, so people can really truly modernize and use us all in the right ways. And there are significant integrator stroke resellers in that space. And we also spend a lot of time with managed service partners as well that are building practices around value-added capability. And some of our solutions, for instance, we have something called Intelligence Cloud, ends up being embedded in those types of managed service frameworks. So really, it's really all types of partner. We don't really have any type of partner, I think, that we don't support. And that includes embedded OEM partners that go to market like Interconnect Billing, provide a solution for telcos, or they are embedding Java technology in a vehicle, which we have all customers, stroke partners that provide solutions that go into the major motor manufacturers that has embedded Java use as well, using Azul. Very interesting space.
And can you also talk a bit about how is this whole channel ecosystem is evolving over time?
Channel for us today is a journey, right? We have a variety of different partners that are with us on this journey and evolving what they do. I think one of the things that's important for you to understand about how channel is evolving in this space and just generally in the market is if you look at value-added resellers, typically before they used to make a lot of their GP, gross profit, off of license margin. And that's because a lot of the ISVs, independent software vendors they're working with, would give them fairly hefty incentives to sell products. And of course, we all know who the big ISVs are. But now what we're finding, because of the focus on budgets, cost optimization, that space is getting squeezed. And it's getting squeezed from two areas. It's getting squeezed from both the vendors, the ISVs, not wanting to necessarily provide as much margin to partners to resell. But it's also getting squeezed by the customers who are getting a lot more savvy around purchasing frameworks, purchasing agreements, where they're locking in much lower margin rates for partners in response to maybe just paying annual fees. That means, of course, that if you're one of these global VARs, you can't make as much money on licensing. So you have to pivot to services. And this is really where the marriage is sort of made it, but really well for us all on channel, because we don't do services ourselves. We provide support services for our partners, and we want our partners to deliver the services. So that means that they can now optimize for additional gross profit and margin off of the services they provide. So now, not only do we give them good incentive on product license and our core product sets, we provide them with the ability to go and create lots of different types of services engagement. Reason why I'm telling you this is because that's a big part of our focus right now, which is to skill up, to equip, to understand go-to-market, to understand the breadth of service potential, because it really is probably one of the largest areas that I see the majority of our partner base moving into fairly aggressively if they're not already in that space today.
How many partners did Azul gain over the year, and how many more do you plan to gain by the end of this year?
At Azul, we have over 200 partners globally. And of course, there's a typical 80-20 rule on these. You probably get the 20% or 80% of your revenue from 20% of your partner base. But that's changed a lot, actually, depending on the countries we operate in and how they view, or customers have been viewing interacting with partners. The growth has been significant, and we're getting all sorts of partners working with us. Typical organizations that maybe had more boutique, I would call it, service engagement around maybe providing developer resources or maybe providing a small managed service to a particular maybe set of customers, like for instance investment banks or a smaller like telcos group, for example. They're coming to us saying, okay, we've got a customer set, maybe 50 customers that we really want to provide next generation solutions for. How do we improve that and provide those services engagement? So we have those types of partners that come to us. Those types of partners we tend to now try and direct through distribution just to provide better scale. But then the larger partners, as I mentioned earlier, they're focusing much more in the big pillars of interest in the market. So that's application modernization, utilizing the cloud cost optimization, managed services, and FinOps. But it's also, interestingly, things like AI. So, of course, everybody talks about AI but that means different things to different people. But what people don't realize is AI, certainly as it relates to the first type of AI, which is very much about machine learning and things like recommendation engines and stuff like that, all that technology, the majority of it, is either powered by Scala or Java. So when you look at the infrastructure that's required to support initiatives like the adoption of AI in an organization, the majority of time somebody has to think about, how do I optimize for my Java environment? Like, for instance, Solr or Apache, for instance, they are all open source Java solutions. So sort of a lot of roads keep coming back to Azure and how we optimize at scale for those types of environments in the cloud. So it's a sort of very interesting space because the partners are starting to realize that we are a mainstay, almost framework that sits within their stack of solutions aligned to all these different market initiatives right now.
How much does the channel contribute to Azure's bookings and inbound opportunities?
Of course, what no. Well, we just actually released a press release on this, which is more of a momentum release for us. So, my journey at Azure has been to take us from relatively low amounts, sub 10% to as close to as 100% as possible of all revenue and become a significant growth factor. I think we announced just recently we crossed over 44%. Our goal is to get 60% or plus within 3 years. We're well on track to do that. It's been probably the fastest I've done this in my career, and I've spent really my whole career in either system engineering, sales, or running channel, usually senior executive roles in most organizations. But this is the first time I've been able to so rapidly build channel within the space of 2 years. And it's partly driven by the market, but it's partly driven by the foresight and the investment of our board and executive team, because candidly, they saw the opportunity to go and really mobilize a channel in a way that was fairly dormant. And in me coming in and being with my background, it was very, well, not easy. Nothing's ever easy, but it was relatively straightforward to go off and go and create that engagement model.
We all know that Oracle, they did the whole Java relicensing and pricing changes. What kind of opportunity does that create for channel partners?
Well, I think the biggest thing is if you're a customer and you are upset right now about your Oracle licensing change, you very rarely just put your hands up and go, I know, I'm just going to talk to an alternative vendor and then I'm going to make my decision. The first thing you do, remember those 3 types I mentioned to you probably earlier in the conversation here. The first type is I'm already licensed with Oracle. Am I out of compliance, or do I have any particular licensing exposure? If you're the second type of customer, which is you're actually using Oracle, but you're really not paying for it. And the reason why is because it used to be free. You haven't really thought about paying for it. Oracle's never come after you to audit you. But now they can just give you a bill because they can look at the number of employees you have. Or the third type, which is you don't understand the dependencies in the technology stacks that relate to Java and how it needs to be licensed. If you're one of those 3 types of customers, the first thing you tend to do is seek some form of expert advice. So they tend to be provided by our partners because they're independent. Of course, they can provide Azure, but they can provide other solutions. And those customers will go to our partners and engage a sort of what's called an advisory service, which is software asset management, IT asset management related, but it's really about providing the right direction on, not necessarily negotiating with Oracle, looking at alternatives, the best ROI and TCO options available for those customers. So to go back to your original question, what that means is that really the majority of what's happening today is that customers are going to our partners first for advice before they then choose the vendor they want to work with. And don't get me wrong, we do a fair amount of business still directly, but that's changing because a lot of partners are involved in that direct business as well. And it's been a sea change. I mean, before people would tend to make those decisions internally, maybe not seek external advice, and they'd just work through a longer process of consideration. Now, because of the impetus that's in the market and the urgency that people see around potentially large Oracle Java licensing increases, the need and the demand for our partners has changed. So if I looked, and I'll give you a good data point here, across all the partners we engage with right now globally, my goodness, they must be doing in total somewhere at least 300 or 400 Java advisories a week, right, at any one time. Now, of course, we have a lot of partners, but that's a lot of customers that have just got some alert framework going on around Java licensing and are trying to just figure it out. And of course, not necessarily all of those will come to Azure, right? But it's a significant large portion of the world that's just now super focused on Java licensing.
Excellent, thank you. And can you also talk about the work that you folks are doing in the managed services and security space?
We have a solution that we provide at Azure called Intelligence Cloud, which is very much around analytics that improve productivity of the developer operations teams, provide insight into understanding around what's actually going on with their Java environment, and also provides a better view on how to manage security in Java applications. We have made the decision fairly recently to go and move that more into a managed service model. And what that means potentially is if you think about maybe two swim lanes here. The first one would be those managed service providers that are more integrator focused or focused on maybe DevOps as an area. They can now go along and provide a service to say, I can tell you how you can improve your developer operations teams, how you can pre-stage and modernize your applications more quickly, and maybe connect the dots more into an automated or integrated process using our solutions as part of a managed service delivery in that area, which is really super interesting for this services build out I was talking about earlier. And the other big area that's some of my background as well, having worked for a few security vendors, is the ability to understand both the posture side and the incident response side of application security on Java applications. We have a solution, we call it Azure Vulnerability Detection. And what it does is it allows organizations to truly understand the nature of how vulnerable their Java applications are by correlating the discovery that we understand from their Java environments to NIST CVEs and understand the exposure there. So we can improve the proactive posture as part of trying to reduce the impact on attack surface. But when people do have a situation, as was happening a few years ago with Log4j, which is a Java library, and which really breached a lot of organizations and was a major exploit. The issue is that when somebody has a major security issue, they don't know where to go and to patch that quickly enough. And it takes the developer teams days, if not weeks, to really figure that out. Well, our solutions pinpoint that within minutes. So you can go and plug the hole in your security strategy very quickly and move those applications into a better, more secure posture framework. So again, that's all managed service delivery. So I'm expecting maybe over the next maybe year and a half or 2 years, we will significantly grow our managed service business in those areas as well.
Do you folks also offer some kind of certifications?
As we grow as well, I think, it's other data points. I mean, you can get them from the press release as well, but we have a lot of people going through our certification programs right now. And our certification is split in 3 areas. It's split into sales, it's system engineering, which is basically providing support for things like advisories and other types of engagements with customers. And then specific migration services, which is all about how somebody moves from A to B and Oracle to Azure, but also how that evolves into other things like modernization as well. So I think as it is right now, we have over 300 individuals that are either already certified or going through that process. And we have a tremendous amount of individuals that are registered to take the training and just at different stages. What that tells me globally is there is a community that is ready to upgrade their skill sets and get into this services space. So I know I'm tapping into a vein of demand because of the amount of integrators and consulting organizations building or piling into this services space. So watch this space. Well, no, I think, if we were to talk again in a year's time, we might see a very different type of business model that's emerged from this.
And since we are talking about, what to expect, and how things will look like. These days, now the most talked about thing is Gen AI. I mean, the fact is AI has been around for decades. We have been using AI. Gen AI kind of rekindled interest in AI, for better or worse. Can you also talk about the work that is being done in this space by Azul?
Well, first of all, I mean, I think when people think of AI, there's a sort of a minimal amount of understanding of really what AI means. And of course, if you're familiar, there's actually probably 3 types of AI today. The most common one is narrow intelligence, artificial intelligence, which is where you talked about Gen AI. Then there's narrow intelligence, which is about machine learning. Then there's Gen AI, which is typically refers to more of the integration in human intelligence whilst trying to mimic human behavior and their super intelligence. So what a lot of people are focused on today is there a way that they can create what I would call a narrow intelligence, first of all, which is better insight, better recommendations, better classification, better categorization. And that's where machine learning plays a part. So when I've been talking a lot to our partners around the space that their customers are trying to get into, although the more sexy stuff, which is what Copilot does, what Google does and things like that on generic intelligence, which is the ability to create a document, the ability to give you recommendations through your browser, things like that. That's slightly more advanced to what a lot of organizations are trying to do with basic machine learning, which give you an example, which is things like self-service knowledge portals, is to get into a space where you can, through a virtual assistant or through a query or something, that you get served up more relevancy, more content that is built around an AI framework that's powered by machine learning underneath. The reason why we're focused in that area, because it's measurable, it's something that people can implement and get immediate business benefit from, and actually it's utilizing mostly Java technology underneath. So for instance, Apache and Apache Spark is a framework that's written in Java that actually provides that type of machine learning and we call it signals or recommendation engine platform that's used to make sure that the results that are delivered to you are more relevant based on the way it's learnt about all the data in your environment. So that's really a very discrete area that's sort of linked to that Gen AI space, but it's more narrow because it's machine learning based. And that's something more discrete that obviously is powered by Java that we can wrap our hands around. So we've got a number of partners interested in doing that, as well as, the more sexy stuff that's to do with the general intelligence that you probably see more visibility of today. I don't think we're going to get into the super intelligence space anytime soon, but it's interesting to see how the market's evolving. And there's a very practical side of AI that, I've seen a lot of my partners really trying to understand how they can get into it and support customer projects in this area.
Simon, thank you so much for taking time out today and talk about this whole, channel momentum announcement and the growth of channel. Also, thanks for sharing where we are heading with Java, with the whole ecosystem. So thanks for those great insights. And as usual, I would love to chat with you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Swapnil. I've enjoyed it very much.